I was a Marine Corps hand-to-hand combat instructor for 15 years. My daughter's boyfriend shoved her. Your dad's just a fat old man. He can't stop me, he sneered. Then he slapped her. I stormed into his gym. His MMA coach laughed. What are you going to do, Grandpa? I grinned. By the time I left, him and 3 fighters were in ICU. Then his uncle, a gang leader, appeared at Ty's work. Huge mistake. Could you ever forgive yourself if you knew the monster hurting your child, and you just stood by and watched? What if you had the power to make it stop, but it meant stepping back into a world of violence you swore you'd left behind forever? The scent of sawdust and linseed oil, always a comfort, filled the garage. It was a familiar, grounding smell that usually brought a sense of peace. But this evening, a heavy weight pressed down on me, making every breath feel shallow. It was Tuesday, a typical day, but the air was thick with a new, unsettling tension that had nothing to do with the wood I was carving. I'm David. For 15 years, I taught young Marines how to break bones and end threats. Now, at 48, my beard was more gray than brown, and the soft civilian life had added a comfortable 30 pounds. But my hands? They never forgot. They remembered every pressure point, every joint lock, every devastating strike I drilled into thousands of warriors. Dad? My daughter, Emily, appeared in the doorway. 22 years old, with her mother's dark hair and my blue eyes. But something was wrong. She wore a turtleneck despite the California heat, and her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Hey, sweetheart, come see this. I held up the cherrywood box, its dovetail joints perfect, a birthday gift for her. What do you think? It's beautiful, she said, stepping closer. That's when I saw it, the careful way she moved, favoring her left side. My instructor instincts kicked in, the same ones that had kept me alive in Fallujah and Helmand Province during my force recon days, before I became the Marine Corps' top MC map instructor at Quantico. How's Brandon treating you? I kept my tone casual, but my eyes tracked every micro-expression. He's good. Really good. The pause was half a second too long. Actually, we're training together now. He's teaching me some boxing basics. My jaw tightened. Brandon Hayes. 26, a cocky MMA fighter who trained at some strip mall gym called Titan's Forge. They'd been dating 4 months, and I disliked him from the first handshake. Too much grip, too much eye contact, the kind of insecure dominance display that screamed overcompensation. Emily, I said, setting down my tools. If anything's wrong. Nothing's wrong, Dad. I'm not a kid anymore. She kissed my cheek and retreated before I could push further. Mom needs help with dinner. That evening, I sat across from my wife, Sarah, at the dinner table. Emily's empty chair stood between us, a silent accusation. Sarah, a trauma nurse at County General, had the same worried crease between her eyebrows that I felt tightening around my heart. She's covering bruises, Sarah said quietly. I saw them when I stopped by her apartment yesterday. Finger marks on her upper arm. My knuckles whitened around my fork. She denied it, said she bumped into a door frame during a workout. Sarah's voice cracked. I've seen enough domestic violence victims to know the difference between accident and assault. The old warrior in me roared. I wanted to drive to Brandon's gym right then, rip him apart with my bare hands. But 15 years of tactical training had taught me patience. You don't win fights by charging in blind. You gather intelligence. You wait for the right moment. You strike when your enemy's guard is down. I'll handle it, I said. Legally, David, Sarah pleaded, meeting my eyes. I said nothing. Some promises, I just couldn't make. 2 weeks crawled by, each day a slow torture. I watched and waited, my surveillance training from Force Recon kicking in. I drove past Titan's Forge 3 times, memorizing the layout, the patterns, the faces. Brandon's coach was a loudmouth named Marcus, the Bull, Thornton, a 40-something with a shaved head and neck tattoos, the kind of trainer who confused brutality with discipline. I also made calls. My old Marine buddy, Mike Chen, now a PI in San Diego, ran background checks. Your daughter's boyfriend is dirty, brother, Mike reported over the phone. 3 assault charges that got pleaded down. Restraining order from an ex-girlfriend. And here's the kicker, his uncle is Victor Sterling. My blood ran cold. Victor Sterling. He ran the Southside Vipers, a gang that controlled drug distribution and underground fighting circuits across 3 counties. These weren't street-level punks. They were organized criminals with legitimate business fronts and dirty cops on payroll. Hayes is their prize fighter, Mike continued. They use him in illegal prize fights, betting hundreds of thousands. He loses, people die. He's psychotic in the ring, David. 3 opponents hospitalized, 1 with permanent brain damage. Mike's voice held a rare edge of warning. Send me everything, Mike. These people aren't some drunk Marines you can straighten out. Send me everything. That night, Sarah tried to draw Emily out, but Emily just picked at her food, jumped when her phone buzzed, checking it constantly with barely concealed fear. After dinner, I walked Emily to her car. Baby girl, I said, my voice soft but firm. I know what's happening. Her eyes filled with tears. Dad, please don't. Has he hit you? It's complicated. He gets stressed with training, with his uncle's expectations. It's not always. Has he hit you? The tears spilled over. He says he loves me. He apologizes every time. He's under so much pressure from his family. I pulled her into a hug, feeling her shake against me. The protective instinct, primal and fierce, consumed me. This ends now. Dad, you don't understand. His uncle. Brandon said if I leave, Victor will hurt you, hurt our family. They're connected, Dad. Police, judges, everyone. Let me worry about that. Promise me you won't do anything stupid. I stroked her hair, just like I did when she was little, scared of thunderstorms. I promise I'll fix this. That night, I pulled my old footlocker from the garage attic. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, were things I'd hoped to never touch again, tactical gear, surveillance equipment, and a notebook filled with 15 years of knowledge on how to neutralize threats. The Marine Corps had trained me to be a weapon. It was time to remember how to deploy that weapon. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at my job as a shop foreman at a custom furniture company when my phone rang. Sarah's voice was ice. Emily's in the ER. She listed me as her emergency contact. My vision narrowed to a tunnel. How bad? Concussion, bruised ribs, split lip. She says she fell downstairs, but David, there are defensive wounds on her forearms. And witnesses saw her arguing with Brandon in the parking lot of his gym an hour ago. The phone cracked in my grip. I'm on my way. But I didn't go to the hospital. Not yet. First, I drove to Titan's Forge. The gym occupied a converted warehouse on the industrial side of town. Bass-heavy music pounded from inside, mixed with the thud of fists on bags and coaches barking orders. I parked and sat for 5 minutes, breathing deeply, finding the cold, calm center I'd cultivated in combat zones. When I walked through the door, the smell hit me, sweat, testosterone, and arrogance. 20 fighters were scattered across the space. Brandon Hayes stood near the cage, laughing with his coach, Marcus Thornton, and 3 other fighters. Brandon was tall, muscular, covered in tattoos, with that predatory confidence that came from never facing real consequences. I walked straight toward them. A few fighters noticed, stopped their work. The music seemed to dim. Brandon saw me coming and grinned. Well, Daddy came to visit. He nudged Marcus. This is Emily's old man. Marcus Thornton looked me up and down. The extra weight, the gray beard, the carpenter's clothes, and laughed. What are you gonna do, Grandpa? Give us a stern talking to. I stopped 10 feet away. My voice was quiet, conversational. You put your hands on my daughter. Your daughter's a clumsy bitch who can't follow simple instructions, Brandon sneered. Told her, your fat old ass couldn't protect her. She didn't believe me, so I had to teach her respect. The 3 fighters with them, Derek Jenkins, Kevin Riley, and Anthony Moretti, all Viper Gang associates, spread out slightly, surrounding me. Marcus stepped forward. Here's how this goes, Grandpa. You turn around, walk out, and forget you have a daughter. Or my boys will make sure you leave on a stretcher. I smiled. It was the smile I'd given Taliban fighters who didn't know they were already dead. I was a Marine Corps hand-to-hand combat instructor for 15 years. I trained Force Recon operators, MARSOC raiders, and over 3,000 combat Marines. I rolled my shoulders, and suddenly, the extra weight didn't look so soft. You're going to need more than 3 guys. Crazy old fuck, Marcus scoffed, nodding at his fighters. Put him down. What happened next took 17 seconds. Derek came in first, throwing a haymaker. I sidestepped, caught his arm, and executed a textbook Kotegashi wrist lock combined with a knee to the solar plexus. Derek dropped like a stone, gasping. Kevin and Anthony rushed together. I moved like water, decades of muscle memory taking over. I deflected Kevin's punch, trapped the arm, and delivered a palm strike to the ear that ruptured the eardrum. As Kevin screamed, I pivoted, caught Anthony's kick, swept his standing leg, and dropped an elbow on the falling fighter's knee. The snap echoed through the gym. 14 seconds. Marcus Thornton grabbed a training knife from the wall rack and lunged. Mistake. My disarm was reflexive, trap the weapon hand, control the wrist, apply pressure to the nerve cluster while stepping into Marcus's center line. The knife clattered away. I drove 3 rapid strikes into Marcus's floating ribs, then swept both legs. Marcus crashed onto his back. I followed him down, knee on sternum, and delivered 2 precise strikes to the jaw that sent him into darkness. 17 seconds. 3 fighters and a coach on the ground, 2 unconscious, 1 clutching a destroyed knee, 1 rolling in agony with a ruptured eardrum. I stood and turned to Brandon Hayes. Brandon's cocky grin had vanished. He backed toward the cage, hands up. You're dead. My uncle. I closed the distance in 2 steps. Brandon threw a combination, jab, cross, hook. I parried each strike, then delivered a front kick to the solar plexus that sent Brandon stumbling backward into the cage wall. Before he could recover, I was on him, trapping an arm behind his back, slamming his face into the chain link once, twice, 3 times. Blood splattered, teeth cracked. I spun Brandon around and lifted him by the throat, speaking inches from his ruined face. You ever come near my daughter again, I'll kill you. You understand me? Brandon gurgled something that might have been agreement. I didn't hear you. Yes. Yes. I dropped him. Brandon collapsed, whimpering. I looked around the gym. Every fighter had backed away, phones out, filming. Good. Let them see. Anyone else want to teach the old man a lesson? Silence. I walked out, my knuckles barely bruised, my breathing steady. Behind me, someone was already calling 911. The knock came at 6 a.m. the next morning. 2 detectives, Alex Stone, a black man in his 50s with tired eyes, and Jessica Hayes, a sharp-featured woman in her 30s. I opened the door in my bathrobe, coffee in hand, expecting this. Mr. Miller, we need to talk about an incident at Titan's Forge gym yesterday. Come in. I led them to the kitchen. Sarah stood by the counter, her lawyer face on. She'd made calls last night to their attorney, prepared for this moment. Detective Stone pulled out a notebook. 4 men are in the hospital. Marcus Thornton has a fractured jaw and broken ribs. Derek Jenkins has internal bleeding. Kevin Cantrell has a ruptured eardrum and needs surgery. Anthony Moretti's knee is destroyed, doctors say he'll never fight again. And Brandon Hayes has a concussion, broken nose, 7 missing teeth, and trauma to his trachea. That's unfortunate, I said evenly. Multiple witnesses filmed you assaulting them. Self-defense. 5 men surrounded me, made threats. 1 came at me with a weapon. I defended myself. Detective Hayes leaned forward. Mr. Miller, these men are claiming. These men put my daughter in the hospital with a concussion, bruised ribs, and a split lip. I have medical records, photographs, and witness statements. Brandon Hayes has a history of assault charges and domestic violence. I confronted him about abusing my daughter. He and his colleagues attacked me. I neutralized the threat using the minimum necessary force my training allowed. Detective Stone's expression shifted slightly. Your training. 15 years Marine Corps hand-to-hand combat instructor. MC MAP black belt, 4th degree. I taught at Quantico. Before that, Force Recon, 3 combat deployments. Would you like my service record? The detectives exchanged glances. Stone cleared his throat. Mr. Hayes's uncle, Victor Sterling, has filed a complaint. He's demanding we arrest you for aggravated assault. Victor Sterling, I sipped my coffee. Head of the Southside Vipers. Drug trafficking, illegal gambling, racketeering. I'm surprised he wants police attention. Detective Hayes's eyes narrowed. What do you know about Victor Sterling? Only what any citizen can find with basic research. I'm curious why a violent gang leader is pressing charges instead of handling things his own way. Unless he's worried that official scrutiny might expose other activities. The room went quiet. Finally, Stone stood. We'll need you to come to the station. Give a formal statement. Of course. I'll call my lawyer. After they left, Sarah gripped my arm. They could still charge you. They won't. Too many witnesses saw Brandon's crew surround me. Self-defense is clear. I looked out the window. But this isn't over. Victor Sterling doesn't call police when his pride is hurt. He makes examples. I was right. That afternoon, my boss, Robert Patterson, the owner of Premium Craft Furniture, called me into the office. He looked uncomfortable. David, someone came by this morning. Victor Sterling. My jaw tightened. What did he want? He said, you put 4 of his guys in the hospital. Said it's bad for business when old men embarrass young fighters. Robert wouldn't meet my eyes. He suggested I fire you. Said if I didn't, there might be problems for the company. Vandalism, permits getting held up, inspections. David, you've been with me 8 years. You're the best foreman I've ever had. But this guy, he's connected. My cousin owns a restaurant on Southside. The Vipers shook him down for protection money. When he refused, they burned it down. Insurance ruled it arson, but nobody could prove anything. So, you're firing me. I'm sorry. 2-week severance. Good references. But you need to be gone today. I drove home, my mind working through scenarios. Victor was escalating, applying pressure, testing defenses. This was psychological warfare. Make my life uncomfortable. Isolate me, then strike when I was vulnerable. Classic gang tactics. But I'd fought insurgents who used the same playbook, and I'd learned something in the Corps: when your enemy attacks your flanks, you don't defend. You attack his center. That night, I met Mike Chen at a diner outside town. Mike slid a thick folder across the table. Everything I could find on Victor Sterling and the Vipers. The gang ran a dozen legitimate businesses as fronts, auto shops, nightclubs, a construction company. But the real money came from underground fighting circuits. They host matches every month, betting pools reaching $500,000 per event. Fighters aren't regulated. Safety is non-existent. 3 deaths in the past 2 years. Where do they hold the fights? Rotating locations. Warehouses, mostly. They announce the venue only hours before, mostly to known bettors and associates. Mike tapped a page. But here's something interesting. The fights are sanctioned through a shell company called Apex Events Management. The owner of record is Marcus Thornton. I studied the documents. Thornton's just the frontman. Victor controls everything, right? And Brandon Hayes is their star attraction. He brings in the big bets because he's psychotic. Doesn't know when to stop. 3 opponents ended up brain damaged because Brandon kept hitting after they were unconscious. How many fighters does Victor use? About 20 regulars. Most are gang members or associates. But here's the thing, Victor has been recruiting legitimate MMA fighters lately, offering them huge purses. Some are desperate enough to risk it. My mind assembled a strategy. I need to get inside one of these events. David, these aren't amateur boxing matches. People die. And after what you did to Brandon, Victor will have your face circulated to every viper in the city. Then I'll need a way and they won't expect. I smiled coldly. Tell me about the recruitment process. 3 days later, I sat in a dive bar called The Cage, on Southside territory, nursing a beer and watching Leon, Flex, Davis work the room. Flex was one of Victor's recruiters, a wiry man in his 30s who scouted talent for the underground fights. Mike's intel said Flex visited The Cage every Thursday, looking for desperate fighters. I'd spent those 3 days transforming myself. I'd shaved my beard to stubble, bought clothes from a thrift store, worn jeans, a faded tap-out shirt, cheap sneakers. I looked like every other washed-up fighter drowning in regret and cheap beer. Flex approached after my 3rd beer. You look like you can handle yourself. I glanced up, playing the part. Used to. Flex sat down uninvited. What happened? Life. Bad knees. Worse decisions. I took a drink. You hiring? Depends. You got a record. Amateur circuit years ago. Nothing professional. The lies came easily. I'd practiced them. But I need money. Wife's medical bills are killing me. Flex studied me. How old are you? 48. But I can still throw down. We've got a fight coming up. $5,000 for showing up. 20 if you win. Interested? Hell, yes. It's not sanctioned. You understand what that means. I understand money's money. Flex pulled out a phone, snapped my photo. I'll run you by my boss. You got a name? Larry Perkins. I'd built the identity carefully. A real person who died 3 years ago in a car accident. Same age, similar build, enough to pass casual scrutiny. Stay here, Larry. 10 minutes later, Flex returned. Boss wants to meet you. You free now? I followed Flex to a blacked-out Escalade. Inside were 2 vipers, Leo, the lion, Carter, a heavily tattooed enforcer, and Frankie, the fixer, Rossi, a quiet killer whose rap sheet Mike had shown me included 2 murders. They drove to a warehouse in the industrial district. Inside, the space had been converted into a makeshift gym, cage, weights, training equipment. And in the center, on a folding chair like a throne, sat Victor Sterling. Victor was 50, built like a bull with graying hair slicked back, and dead eyes that had seen too much violence. He wore an expensive suit that barely concealed the weapon at his hip. Larry Perkins, Victor's voice was gravel. Flex says you need money. That's right. You know who I am. I've heard stories. Then you know what happens to people who waste my time or cross me. I met his eyes steadily. I'm just looking for a payday. Victor studied me for a long moment. You look familiar. My pulse remained steady. Years of controlling physiological responses in interrogation training. I've got one of those faces. Strip. I didn't hesitate. I removed my shirt, revealing the extra weight I carried, but also the underlying muscle definition. Old scars from combat marked my torso, shrapnel, knife wound, bullet graze. They told a story Victor could read. Military. Marines. Long time ago. Victor stood, walked around me. What did you do? Infantry. Did my time. Got out. Bullshit. Those scars aren't from standing guard duty. Victor poked at a knife scar. You saw action. Yeah. Iraq and Afghanistan. And now you need money bad enough to fight in my cage. Victor smiled without warmth. Your opponent is Kevin Riley. You might have heard of him. Fighter at Titan's Forge. Just recovered from an injury. He's angry. Wants to hurt someone. That someone's going to be you. I recognized the name. One of the fighters I'd put down at the gym. This was a test. Victor suspected something but couldn't confirm it. He was dangling bait. When's the fight? Saturday night. But first, you train here. let my coach see what you can do. If you're as good as you claim, you fight. If you're wasting my time. Victor let the threat hang. For the next 2 days, I trained at the warehouse under the watchful eye of Coach Rico Santos, a former boxer who trained Victor's fighters. I carefully calibrated my performance, good enough to impress, not so dominant as to raise suspicion. I sparred with mid-level fighters, took some hits, gave some back, played the role of a competent but aging warrior. But at night, I worked my real plan. Using the access I'd gained, I planted surveillance equipment around the warehouse. Tiny cameras in light fixtures, audio bugs in the office where Victor conducted business. I photographed documents, memorized faces, built a comprehensive picture of the Viper organization. Mike had connected me with Agent Rachel Vance, an FBI agent who'd been trying to build a case against Victor for 3 years. I fed her everything, evidence of illegal gambling, racketeering, assault. But they needed more. They needed proof of the fights, the betting, the whole operation. Saturday arrived. By evening, I stood in a converted warehouse on the docks, surrounded by 300 people, gang members, gamblers, dealers, dirty cops, wealthy thrill-seekers. Money changed hands in thick stacks. The air reeked of sweat, smoke, and blood. In the cage, across from me, Kevin, the Carnage, Riley warmed up, his ears still bandaged from our previous encounter. But Kevin didn't recognize me. The beard was gone. The context was different. And people saw what they expected to see. Victor stepped into the cage, microphone in hand. Gentlemen, our main event, Kevin the Butcher, Riley versus Larry Perkins. Some old Marine looking for grocery money. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Kevin's going to make this quick and painful. The bell rang. Kevin came out aggressive, throwing heavy combinations. I moved defensively, circling, absorbing strikes on my forearms, playing the overmatched underdog. The crowd cheered. Victor watched from ringside, his expression bored. But I was setting the tempo, controlling the distance, studying Kevin's patterns. After 2 minutes, I'd seen enough. The next time Kevin threw a wild right hook, I stepped inside, trapped the arm, and delivered a textbook elbow strike to the temple. Kevin's eyes glazed. I swept his legs, followed him down, and applied a rear-naked choke. 7 seconds later, Kevin tapped frantically. The crowd erupted. Money changed hands. Victor's expression shifted from bored to interested. I released the choke and helped Kevin up. As our eyes met, recognition flashed across Kevin's face. His eyes went wide. You. My fist connected with Kevin's jaw, cutting off the revelation. Kevin crumpled. The crowd assumed it was post-fight drama, laughed and cheered. But I had seen Victor's eyes narrow. I exited the cage quickly, collected my $5,000 from Flex Davis, and headed for the exit. But Leo Carter blocked my path. Boss wants to see you. My hand moved toward the folding knife in my pocket, but I caught myself. Not yet. Not here. Surrounded by enemies, I followed Leo to a back office where Victor waited, flanked by Frankie Rossi. Hell of a fight, Larry, Victor said, pouring whiskey into 2 glasses. For an old man, I've still got some moves. Yeah, you do. Funny thing, Kevin seemed to recognize you right before you knocked him out. People mistake me for other people sometimes. Victor slid a photograph across the desk. My stomach dropped. It was a security camera still from Titan's Forge, showing me mid-fight with Derek Jenkins. This is from my nephew's gym. 2 weeks ago, some asshole walked in and hospitalized 4 of my guys, including Kevin. Victor tapped the photo. This asshole looks a lot like you, except he had a beard. The room went silent. Frankie's hand moved toward his waistband. I calculated angles, distances, exits. I was outgunned, but not outmatched. My nephew Brandon is still eating through a straw because of this guy, Victor continued. You know what I do to people who hurt my family? I imagine you make them disappear. Exactly. Victor leaned back. So, here's my problem, Larry. Or should I call you David Miller? See, I did my homework after Flex sent me your photo. Took a while to connect the dots, but but facial recognition software is amazing these days. David Miller, formerly Gunnery Sergeant David Miller. MC Map Instructor at Quantico. Force Recon before that. Quite a resume. I said nothing. You came into my operation under false pretenses. You humiliated my nephew and my fighters. You cost me money and respect. Victor's voice hardened. That requires consequences. Then why am I still breathing? Victor smiled. Because I'm a businessman. You're a talented fighter, and you've got skills I can use. So here's the deal. You fight for me. Exclusive contract. 20 fights, 50 grand each. You win, you make $1 million, and we forget about Brandon. And if I refuse? Your wife Sarah works at County General, night shift on Thursdays. Your daughter Emily lives alone in that apartment on Maple Street. Accidents happen, David. Terrible, random accidents. There it was. The threat I'd been expecting. My face remained neutral, but my mind raced. This was the moment of decision. I need time to think. You've got 60 seconds. I stood, walked to the window, my back to them. I could see my reflection in the glass. A tired man, carrying too much weight, too many years. But underneath, the warrior remained. And warriors didn't negotiate with terrorists. Okay, I said, turning. I'll fight for you. Victor's laugh was genuine. Smart man. Welcome to the team. They shook hands. Victor's grip was crushing, a dominance display. I matched it, then exceeded it, squeezing until I felt the bones shift. Victor's smile faltered. One condition, I said. My family doesn't know about this. As far as they're concerned, I'm working construction in Nevada for 6 months. Done. But you live here, train here. I need to know where you are at all times. Fair enough. That night, I moved into a room above the warehouse gym. Victor assigned Flex Davis to watch me, ensure I didn't run. But I wasn't planning to run. I was planning something far more dangerous. Using the burner phone Mike had given me, I texted one word, inside. The next morning, I began my real mission. Training with Victor's fighters, I assessed their skills, identified weaknesses, memorized the operational structure. I ingratiated myself with Coach Rico Santos, learning the schedule of fights, the betting system, the protection payoffs to cops and officials. And at night, when Flex thought I was sleeping, I moved through the warehouse like a ghost. I photographed financial records, recorded conversations, documented the entire criminal enterprise. Every piece of evidence went to Mike, who passed it to Agent Vance. But I was playing a deeper game. I wasn't just gathering evidence. I was identifying pressure points. Every organization had vulnerabilities, people who could be turned, alliances that could be fractured. Victor's empire looked solid, but I knew from combat, the bigger the fortress, the more catastrophic the collapse when you found the right crack. My opportunity came 2 weeks later when I overheard Victor arguing with his lieutenant, Frankie Rossi, about money. Frankie thought Victor was shorting him on profits. Victor accused Frankie of skimming. The argument ended with threats, but I heard the fracture forming. I also learned that Brandon Hayes, still recovering from my beating, was becoming a liability. Brandon had developed a dependency on pain medication, was unstable, paranoid. Victor was losing faith in his nephew. All the pieces were falling into place. I just needed to push them in the right direction. My third fight was against Derek Jenkins, the first fighter I'd put down at Titan's Forge. This time, I didn't hold back. I dismantled Derek in 90 seconds with a combination of strikes and submissions that left the crowd stunned and Derek unconscious. Afterward, Victor pulled me aside. You're making me a lot of money, David. The odds were 8-1 against you. I cleaned up. Glad I could help. You know what I think. Victor lit a cigar. I think you could beat my nephew in his prime. Hell, you could probably beat anyone in this organization. Probably. Why'd you really come here? And don't give me that grocery money bullshit. I had been waiting for this question. Brandon put my daughter in the hospital. I went to his gym to teach him a lesson. You escalated by threatening my family and getting me fired. So I infiltrated your operation to find leverage. The honesty surprised Victor. That's it. Revenge? I'm a simple man with simple motivations. And now I'm making money and my family is safe. Seems like a fair trade. Victor studied me. You're either the smartest man I've met or the dumbest. I can't decide which. Maybe both. Over the following weeks, I became Victor's favorite fighter, my cage record undefeated at 7-0. But more importantly, I became trusted. Victor brought me into planning meetings, asked my tactical advice, even had me train younger fighters. I used every opportunity. I planted seeds of doubt, subtle manipulations that played on existing tensions. I mentioned to Frankie that Victor had called him unreliable. I told Flex that Frankie was planning to branch out independently. I suggested to Rico that Victor was planning to replace him with a younger coach. None of it was true, but I understood human psychology. People believed what confirmed their existing suspicions. And in a criminal organization built on paranoia and violence, suspicions spread like cancer. Meanwhile, Agent Vance built her case. My evidence had given her enough for warrants, surveillance authorization, wiretaps. She had everything except the timing. We can take them down now, she told me during a clandestine meeting at a truck stop outside town. We've got RICO charges, racketeering, illegal gambling, assault, conspiracy. Not yet, I said. Victor has cops and judges in his pocket. He'll walk or get a light sentence, be back on the streets in 2 years. We need to hit him when he's completely vulnerable. What are you planning? Something Victor will never see coming. Just be ready to move when I give the signal. The signal came 2 weeks later. I had learned that Victor was planning his biggest fight yet, a title match between Brandon Hayes and a Russian fighter named Ivan Volkov, with betting pools expected to exceed $2 million. Every major player in the criminal underworld would attend. Every dirty cop, every corrupt official, every gang leader Victor did business with. It would be the biggest gathering of criminal enterprise in the city's history. It would also be their last. I approached Victor with a proposition. I want to fight Brandon. Victor laughed. You beat my nephew unconscious already. Exactly. The rematch would draw a massive betting. You'd make a fortune. Brandon's not ready. He's still recovering. Unstable. Then let me fight the Russian. Ivan. Victor's expression shifted to genuine surprise. You serious? Ivan's a killer. He's 6 feet 5 inches, 260. Professional heavyweight. He's destroyed everyone we've put against him. I can beat him. You're 50 pounds lighter and 20 years older. I know what I'm doing. Victor considered this. The odds would be astronomical. If I won, Victor would make millions. If I lost, well, Victor would still make money, and he'd be rid of a potential threat. Okay, Victor said finally. You fight Ivan. But we do it right. Huge promotion, massive betting pool. This will be the event of the year. Perfect. I had 1 month to prepare. During that month, I trained harder than I had in 15 years, shedding weight, sharpening techniques, rebuilding the weapon I'd once been. But I also finalized my other preparations. Mike flew in from San Diego with equipment, cameras, recording devices, encrypted communications. Agent Vance positioned FBI tactical teams around the city, local police, the clean ones who weren't on Victor's payroll, were briefed and put on standby. And I made one final call to my wife. Sarah, I need you to trust me. On Saturday night, take Emily and go to your sister's in Oregon. Don't ask questions. Don't tell anyone. Just go. David, what are you doing? Fixing things. I'll call you when it's over. I love you, David. I love you, Sarah. Tell Emily I'm proud of her. I hung up before she could respond. Saturday night arrived like Judgment Day. The warehouse on the docks had been transformed into an arena packed with over 500 people. The betting pool had reached $3 million. Every criminal element in the city was present, drawn by greed and spectacle. I stood in the makeshift locker room, wrapping my hands. Brandon Hayes entered. His face had healed poorly, his nose crooked, gaps where teeth used to be. His eyes held a manic gleam. "I know what you're doing," Brandon said. "You think you're clever, infiltrating my uncle's operation, but you're going to die tonight. Ivan is going to kill you, and I'm going to watch." I finished wrapping my hands. "Your uncle's going to prison tonight. You are, too. And the woman you put in the hospital. She's never going to see you again. You have no idea who you're fucking with." "I'm fucking with a coward who hits women and hides behind his uncle. I'm fucking with a failed fighter who needs drugs to get through the day. I'm fucking with a punk who's about to watch his entire world collapse." Brandon's fist came fast, but I was faster. I caught the wrist, twisted, and slammed Brandon face first into the locker. "You're going to sit there and stay quiet. Move again, I'll break your arm." Brandon whimpered and nodded. In the arena, Victor stood in the cage with a microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, criminals and degenerates, welcome to the fight of the century." The crowd roared. In this corner, our champion, Ivan the Siberian Bear, Volkov. Undefeated, unstoppable, unbeatable. Ivan climbed into the cage, massive, scarred, empty-eyed, a killer who enjoyed his work. And the challenger. A man stupid enough to think he can win. David, the instructor, Miller. I entered the cage to mixed reactions, some cheers from those who'd bet on the underdog, mostly jeers from those who knew I was doomed. Victor approached me one last time. Last chance to back out. "I'm good. Your funeral." Victor exited the cage. The referee, one of Victor's guys, gave perfunctory instructions. Ivan and I touched gloves. Ivan's grip was crushing, his eyes promised death. The bell rang. Ivan charged like a bull, throwing massive hooks and overhands. I evaded, circled, making Ivan chase me. The crowd grew restless. They wanted blood, not dancing. But I was fighting a different fight. I wasn't trying to win, not yet. I was waiting for my signal. It came 3 minutes into the first round. The warehouse lights flickered once, twice, then steady. Mike's signal. I changed tactics. I stopped evading and started attacking. A low kick to Ivan's lead leg, a jab to the body, a hook to the liver. Ivan grunted, surprised by the sudden offense. I pressed forward, my strikes precise and devastating, liver shots, leg kicks, body punches. The Russian's mass was his weakness. I was faster, more technical, more efficient. Ivan tried to clinch, use his size advantage. I anticipated, dropped levels, and executed a perfect double leg takedown. On the ground, I was in my element. I moved to mount, postured up, and rained down elbows. The crowd was screaming now. This wasn't supposed to happen. Ivan tried to roll, but I transitioned to back control. Hooks in, hand under the chin. The rear naked choke was textbook perfect, sunk deep. Ivan thrashed, tried to break the grip, but my technique was flawless. 10 seconds later, Ivan went limp. The referee stopped the fight. I released the choke and stood, raising my hands. But I wasn't looking at the crowd. I was looking at the exits, where FBI agents in tactical gear were pouring in. Federal agents. Nobody move. The warehouse erupted into chaos. Criminals ran for exits, only to find them blocked. Agents swarmed the building, weapons drawn, shouting orders. Some of Victor's guys tried to fight, they were tossed, tackled, and cuffed. In the cage, I watched Victor's face transform from shock to fury to betrayal. Our eyes locked across the chaos. "You!" Victor screamed, pushing through the crowd toward the cage. "You did this." Frankie and Flex tried to follow, but FBI agents intercepted them. The massive operation I had helped orchestrate was unfolding perfectly. Every entrance sealed, every exit covered, every criminal in the building trapped. Victor reached the cage, climbing in with murder in his eyes. "I'm going to kill you." I smiled. "You're going to try." Victor pulled a knife from his waistband, a tactical folder, wicked sharp. He lunged, slashing. My disarm was reflexive, practiced 10,000 times. I trapped Victor's wrist, applied pressure to the nerve cluster, twisted. The knife clattered to the canvas. Then I went to work. 15 years of teaching Marines how to end threats efficiently. Every technique, every principle, every lesson delivered with surgical precision. Jab, cross, hook to the body, leg sweep, ground control. I mounted Victor and delivered controlled strikes. Not enough to kill, but enough to punish. This is for my daughter. A strike to the ribs. This is for every woman you terrorized. Another to the solar plexus. This is for every life you ruined. A final strike to the jaw. Victor went limp, unconscious, but alive. I stood as FBI agents swarmed the cage, weapons trained on both of us. David Miller. Hands up. I complied, hands raised. Agent Vance pushed through the crowd, her expression severe for the cameras, but her eyes grateful. You're under arrest for participation in illegal fighting. Understood. She cuffed me deliberately loose and whispered, play along. We discussed this. I was led out through the chaos, past the arrested gang members, past the terrified gamblers, past Brandon Hayes being dragged away in cuffs. Outside, news cameras had arrived. The FBI had tipped them off. This would be national news by morning. In the back of an FBI van, Agent Vance uncuffed me. We got everyone. Victor, Frankie, Brandon, Flex, Rico, all the major players, plus 57 criminals with outstanding warrants, 12 dirty cops, 3 judges, and more evidence than we can process. Good. The charges against you are for show. We'll drop them tomorrow. Claim you were acting as an informant. Sarah and Emily are safe, by the way. We've had them in protective custody since you made the call. I nodded, exhaustion suddenly overwhelming me. It was over. 3 months of planning, manipulation, and risk, but it was finally over. The trial took 8 months. I testified, my immunity deal protecting me from prosecution. The evidence I'd gathered, financial records, recordings, videos, was overwhelming. Victor Sterling received 40 years in federal prison. Frankie Rossi got 25. Brandon Hayes, facing assault charges for Emily, plus his participation in the illegal fighting ring, got 15. The Southside Vipers collapsed without leadership, their criminal empire dismantled by follow-up investigations. I returned home to a life that was quieter, but not unchanged. The furniture company rehired me. Robert Patterson, the owner, had seen the news, understood the full story, and apologized. I accepted, but I knew that part of my life felt small now. Emily had been in therapy, working through the trauma Brandon had inflicted. She was stronger now, cautious, but not broken. Father and daughter had dinner every Sunday, a ritual that helped them both heal. One evening, 3 months after the trial, I sat on my porch with Sarah, watching the sunset. She held my hand, her thumb tracing the scars on my knuckles. Do you regret it? She asked. No. You could have died, multiple times. But I didn't. And they're gone. All of them. Was it worth it? I considered this. The months of danger, the lies, the violence, the risk to myself and indirectly to my family. Was justice worth that price? I thought of Emily's smile at last Sunday's dinner, genuinely happy for the first time in a year. I thought of the other victims who testified at trial, finding their voices because I had given them the courage. I thought of the city, slightly safer because one criminal empire had fallen. Yeah, I said. It was worth it. A car pulled up. Mike Chen, visiting from San Diego. He joined us on the porch with beers, and we sat in comfortable silence. 3 people who'd gone to war and survived. FBI offered me a consultant position, I mentioned, teaching hand-to-hand combat to agents, helping with undercover operations. Sarah's hand tightened on mine. And I turned it down. I've had enough of that life. I just want to build furniture, have Sunday dinners with Emily, and grow old with you. Good answer. But I knew myself better than that. Somewhere inside, the warrior remained. Always watching, always ready, always capable. If another Victor Sterling emerged, if another Brandon Hayes threatened my family, I would do it all again. Some men were born to fight. I had accepted that about myself long ago. Dad. I turned to find Emily standing in the doorway, her boyfriend beside her, a gentle accountant named Daniel Thompson, who treated her with respect and kindness. Hey, sweetheart. Daniel and I have some news. She was smiling. We're engaged. Sarah squealed and rushed to hug them both. Mike offered congratulations. I stood, slowly approached Daniel, and extended my hand. Congratulations, son. Daniel shook my hand nervously. Thank you, sir. I promise I'll treat her right. I know you will. My grip was firm, but not crushing. But just so we're clear, I was a Marine Corps hand-to-hand combat instructor for 15 years. You've seen the news reports about what happened to the last guy who hurt my daughter. Daniel paled slightly. Emily swatted my arm. Dad. I grinned. I'm kidding. Mostly. I pulled Daniel into a hug, clapping him on the back. Welcome to the family. As they celebrated inside, I stepped back onto the porch alone. The sun had set completely, leaving stars scattered across the dark sky. I thought about the path that had led me here, from the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan, through the training halls of Quantico, into the underworld of criminal fighting, and finally, home. The journey had been violent and dangerous, but necessary. Because some things were worth fighting for. Family, justice, the basic human right to live without fear. I, David Miller, had been a. I was content to simply hold my grandson and feel the warmth of family around me. Sarah beside me, Emily and Daniel nearby, Mike visiting from San Diego. The past was behind us, the future uncertain but hopeful. I had been a Marine, an instructor, a warrior, and an avenger. Now, finally, I was just a man at peace. And that was the greatest victory of all. This story, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? About how far you'd go for the people you love. If you were in my shoes, faced with protecting your family from that kind of evil, what would your first move be? Let me know in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts.